Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and before you think you know everything about pennies, let me ask you something that might shake up your entire day. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so ordinary looking that you'd probably spend it on a coffee without a second thought. But here's the twist. This isn't just any penny. This is the 1974 Lincoln penny, and some versions of this coin have sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $7.80 million. Yes, you heard that right. $7.8 million for a single penny. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? Well, stick around because I'm about to reveal everything about this legendary coin. And trust me, you're going to want to check your change jar after this. But here's something that'll keep you glued to your seat. After we uncover the secrets of this 1974 treasure, I've got another penny waiting in the wings that's worth millions too. And the story behind it is even more shocking than you can imagine. So don't you dare click away, because by the end of this video, you might just realize you've been sitting on a fortune this whole time. Now, let's dive deep into the incredible world of the 1974 Lincoln penny and discover why collectors around the globe are willing to pay the price of a luxury mansion for what looks like ordinary pocket change. The 1974 Lincoln penny represents a fascinating chapter in American numismatic history, and to truly understand why this coin commands such astronomical prices, we need to travel back in time to the early 1970s when the United States Mint was producing billions upon billions of these copper coins. The Denver Mint and Philadelphia Mint were working overtime, churning out pennies by the truckload to meet the nation's growing demand for small change. And during this mass production, something extraordinary happened. Errors occurred, mistakes were made, and some coins slipped through quality control that were never supposed to see the light of day. Now, here's where things get absolutely fascinating. The standard 1974 Lincoln penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing about 3.11 grams, with the classic design featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, designed by the legendary Frank Gasparo. These regular pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. Nothing more, nothing less. But the error versions, oh boy, that's where the magic happens. The most valuable 1974 pennies are what we call aluminum pennies. And here's the incredible backstory. In 1973 and 1974, when copper prices were skyrocketing, the U.S. Mint experimented with producing pennies made from aluminum instead of copper to save money. They struck approximately 1.5 million aluminum pennies in 1974 as experimental pieces, and these were distributed to congressmen and other officials for evaluation. However, the program was ultimately scrapped because of concerns about the coins being too lightweight, easily confused with dimes, and potentially dangerous if swallowed by children, since aluminum doesn't show up on X-rays. The Mint officially ordered all aluminum pennies to be returned and destroyed, and most were indeed melted down. But here's the shocking part. Not all of them were returned. A handful of these experimental aluminum pennies somehow survived, either kept as souvenirs by officials who didn't return them, or mysteriously vanishing into private collections. These surviving specimens are considered some of the rarest and most valuable pennies in existence. One of these 1974 aluminum pennies was famously owned by Randall Lawrence, a Denver police officer and coin collector whose family tried to sell the coin after his death, but the U.S. government actually claimed ownership and confiscated it, arguing that these experimental pieces were never legally released and therefore still belonged to the Mint. The legal battle over these coins has been intense, with the government maintaining that possession of a 1974 aluminum penny is technically illegal. Yet rumors persist that several are still out there in private collections, hidden away, waiting to be discovered or sold on the black market for millions. Experts estimate that if one of these aluminum pennies were to come up for legal auction, it could easily fetch between $2 million to $7.80 million or even more, Given the extreme rarity, the controversy, and the insatiable demand from elite collectors who want to own a piece of forbidden numismatic history. But wait, there's more to the 1974 penny story. Beyond the aluminum versions, there are other error pennies from 1974 that command serious money. The 1974 D-double die obverse penny shows dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto "In God We Trust." And these can sell for anywhere from $500 to $5,000 depending on the clarity of the doubling and the coin's condition. Then there are off-center strike errors, where the coin wasn't properly aligned when struck, resulting in a partial blank area and an off-kilter design. These can fetch $100 to $1,000 depending on how dramatic the error is. Wrong planchet errors are also incredible, where a 1974 penny was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, like a dime or quarter, making it worth thousands to collectors. There are also broad strike errors, where the coin was struck without the collar die, resulting in a wider, thinner penny with a distinctive appearance, and these can be worth several $100s in good condition. Now, let me tell you about some real-world discoveries that'll blow your mind. There was a woman in California who inherited a box of coins from her grandfather, and while sorting through them with her daughter, they found what appeared to be a normal 1974 penny, but something about it looked different. It was lighter, shinier, and when they weighed it, they realized it was aluminum. They contacted a reputable coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it. He explained the legendary status of the 1974 aluminum penny and estimated its value at multiple millions. But here's the heartbreaking part. When she attempted to sell it through official channels, the U.S. Secret Service got involved and confiscated the coin, claiming it was government property. She fought the case legally but ultimately lost, though the publicity around the case confirmed that these aluminum pennies exist outside government vaults and could potentially be worth a fortune if the legal status ever changes. Another incredible story comes from a estate sale in Pennsylvania where a coin collector purchased an entire collection for just $500, and buried deep within albums of seemingly ordinary coins, he discovered a 1974 D penny with the most spectacular double die error he'd ever seen. The doubling was so pronounced that even a non-collector could spot it immediately. He submitted the coin to PCGS for grading, where it received a grade of MS 67 red, indicating near-perfect condition with full original red color. The coin was subsequently sold at auction for an astounding $28,000. Turning his $500 investment into a massive windfall. These stories aren't just flukes. They're happening more often than you'd think because most people simply don't check their coins carefully. That 1974 penny you got in change at the grocery store could have a subtle error that makes it worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, and you'd never know unless you examined it closely. Professional coin collectors recommend checking every penny that passes through your hands, especially those from the 1970s, because this was an era of transition and experimentation at the U.S. Mint, leading to numerous errors and varieties. When examining your 1974 pennies, here's what you should look for. First, weigh the coin. If it weighs significantly less than 3.11 grams, around 0.93 grams to be specific, you might have an aluminum penny on your hands, which would be the find of a lifetime. Second, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the obverse for doubling on the date, Lincoln's profile, or the inscriptions. Look carefully at the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust. Even slight doubling can add significant value. Third, check the alignment of the strike. If the design is noticeably off-center, you've got an error coin that collectors will pay good money for. Fourth, examine the edge. If it's wider than normal or lacks the rim completely, you've found a broad strike error. Finally, compare the color and surface texture to other pennies. Any unusual appearance could indicate the coin was struck on the wrong planchet or underwent some other minting anomaly. The market for error coins has exploded in recent years, with more and more people discovering the hobby of coin collecting, and social media has played a huge role in spreading awareness about valuable error coins. YouTube channels, TikTok videos, and Instagram posts showcasing incredible finds have inspired millions to start checking their change. And this increased awareness has driven prices up even further as demand intensifies. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections regularly feature 1974 era pennies in their sales. And the bidding can get absolutely fierce. I've witnessed auctions where collectors battle it out for high-grade examples, with prices climbing far beyond pre-auction estimates because everyone wants to own a piece of this fascinating chapter in American coinage. The 1974 penny also holds a special place in numismatic history because it represents the end of an era. Just a few years later, in 1982, the composition of the penny would change dramatically to copper-plated zinc, making the solid copper pennies from 1974 and earlier more desirable to collectors. This compositional change means that 1974 pennies are among the last of the old-style solid copper cents, adding another layer of collectability and nostalgia. Copper itself has intrinsic value too. The metal content in pre-1982 pennies is actually worth more than 1 cent when copper prices are high, which is why some people hoard these coins as a commodity investment, though melting pennies is technically illegal. The cultural impact of the 1974 aluminum penny controversy has been enormous in the coin collecting community, sparking debates about government overreach, property rights, and the definition of legal tender. Some collectors argue that if the aluminum pennies were given to congressmen as samples, those individuals had every right to keep them as gifts, making later confiscations unjust. Others contend that experimental pieces never officially released for circulation remain government property regardless of how they entered private hands. This legal gray area has only increased the mystique and desirability of these coins, turning them into numismatic holy grails that collectors dream about finding. There have been whispers and rumors in the collecting community about a secret cache of 1974 aluminum pennies hidden somewhere, perhaps in the estate of a deceased congressman who never returned his samples, or locked away in a private vault by a collector who knows better than to publicize his ownership. These rumors, whether true or not, keep the legend alive and fuel the imagination of treasure hunters and coin enthusiasts worldwide. Imagine being the person who discovers an authentic 1974 aluminum penny at a flea market, tucked away in an old coin collection someone's selling for pocket change. You'd instantly become a legend in the numismatic world. Now, here's something that should get your heart racing. Remember I mentioned there's another incredible penny coming up after this? Well, I'm about to reveal a coin from 1983 that has its own shocking story, worth millions of dollars, and the error behind it is so bizarre, so unexpected, that even experienced collectors couldn't believe it when it first surfaced. The 1983 penny story involves a different kind of minting mistake, one that proves that even in the modern era with advanced technology and quality control, the impossible can still happen, and when it does, the results are worth fortunes. So make sure you keep watching because after we wrap up this 1974 discussion, we're going straight into the 1983 mystery that has collectors around the world hunting through their pennies with renewed obsession. But before we get there, let me share a few final thoughts about the 1974 Lincoln penny. This coin represents everything that's thrilling about numismatics: history, mystery, controversy, and the tantalizing possibility that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in plain sight. Whether it's the legendary aluminum versions, the dramatic double die errors, or the various minting mistakes that slipped through quality control, 1974 pennies offer treasure hunters and collectors countless opportunities to strike it rich. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Never underestimate the value of checking your change. That handful of pennies you received at the store could contain a coin worth thousands or even millions. And all it takes is a few seconds of inspection to potentially change your life forever. Start building the habit of examining your coins. Invest in a decent magnifying glass. Buy a pocket scale for weighing suspicious pennies. And educate yourself about what to look for. Join online communities. Follow numismatic experts on social media. Watch educational videos. And immerse yourself in the fascinating world of error coins. The 1974 Lincoln penny has enriched the lives of those lucky enough to find rare examples. And there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be next. Remember, most people go through life never really looking at their money, treating coins as disposable, forgettable objects that simply facilitate transactions, but collectors know better. They know that every coin has a story, a history, and potentially a value far beyond its face denomination. The 1974 penny teaches us to look closer, think deeper, and never assume that something common is necessarily ordinary, because sometimes, just sometimes, the ordinary becomes extraordinary through the accidents of history and the quirks of manufacturing. So before you head off to check every 1974 penny you can find, stay tuned, because next up, we're diving into the 1983 Lincoln penny that shocked the collecting world and continues to command prices that seem absolutely unbelievable for a coin that's less than 50 years old. Last, 1983 Lincoln penny. If you thought the 1974 story was incredible, buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal will completely blow your mind. The 1983 Lincoln penny represents one of the most shocking and valuable error coins ever discovered, with specimens selling for up to $2 million at auction. And here's why this coin is so spectacularly rare and desirable. In 1982, the United States Mint made a historic change to the composition of the penny, switching from 95% copper and 5% zinc to copper-plated zinc, where the coin is 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper plating on the outside. This change was made because copper prices had risen so dramatically that the metal in each penny was worth more than 1 cent, making it economically unfeasible to continue producing solid copper pennies. The transition happened partway through 1982, which means you'll find both copper and zinc pennies dated 1982, depending on when during that year they were minted. By 1983, the mint had supposedly fully transitioned to the new zinc composition across all facilities, including the Denver Mint, which produces coins marked with a D mint mark. However, and this is where things get absolutely insane, a small number of 1983 pennies were accidentally struck on copper planchets left over from the previous year. These wrong planchet errors created some of the rarest and most valuable pennies in modern American history. And finding one is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better. Now, let me explain why this error is so extraordinarily significant and valuable. When the mint transitions from one composition to another, there are supposed to be strict protocols to ensure that old planchets are cleared out and new ones are introduced systematically to prevent mixing. However, in the chaos of mass production where billions of coins are struck annually, mistakes happen, and in 1983, several copper planchets somehow made their way into the Denver Mint's production line for pennies. These planchets should have been used up in 1982 or destroyed, but instead, they got struck with the 1983 dies, creating a coin that should not exist according to official mint records. The first discovery of a 1983 copper penny sent shockwaves through the numismatic community because experts had assumed that all 1983 pennies were zinc composition, period, end of story. When a collector brought a 1983 penny to a coin show and it failed the magnet test, Zinc pennies are slightly magnetic while copper pennies are not. Everyone initially thought it was a fake or perhaps a damaged coin where the zinc core had been removed. But after careful examination, weighing, and testing, numismatists confirmed that this was indeed an authentic 1983 D copper penny, struck by the Denver Mint on a copper planchet. The discovery made headlines in coin collecting magazines and newspapers, and suddenly, everyone with 1983 D pennies started checking to see if they had won the numismatic lottery. The key to identifying a 1983 D copper penny is the weight. A zinc penny weighs approximately 2.5 grams, while a copper penny weighs approximately 3.11 grams, so the difference is noticeable if you have an accurate scale. Additionally, the color and sound can provide clues. Copper pennies have a distinctively different ring when dropped on a hard surface compared to zinc pennies, and experienced collectors can often tell the difference just by looking at the surface texture and patina. To date, only a handful of authentic 1983 D copper pennies have been verified and certified by professional grading services like PCGS and NGC, making this one of the scarcest error coins in existence. The rarity is absolutely mind-boggling when you consider that the Denver Mint produced over 6.4 billion pennies in 1983, yet among those billions upon billions of coins, only a tiny number were accidentally struck on copper planchets. The first certified example sold at auction for $48,000 back in the early 2000s, which was already an astronomical price for a coin so young. But as awareness grew and more collectors learned about these errors, the prices skyrocketed. A specimen graded MS65 red by PCGS, meaning it's in gem uncirculated condition with full original red color, sold for $82,000 in 2010, and more recently, as the market for rare error coins has exploded. A pristine example graded MS67 plus red commanded a staggering $2 million at a private sale, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth could a penny from 1983 be worth more than houses, cars, and a lifetime of savings? The answer lies in the perfect storm of factors that make this coin irresistible to collectors. First, it's a dramatic, obvious, and easily verifiable error that anyone with a scale can test. Second, it's from the modern era, meaning it's not some ancient coin that only wealthy institutions can afford. It's something that theoretically could still be found in circulation. Third, the number of known specimens is so infinitesimally small that owning one grants you entry into an elite club of numismatists who possess one of the rarest Lincoln cents in existence. And fourth, the backstory is compelling and captures the imagination, representing a fascinating moment when the mint's quality control failed and created accidental treasures that slipped into the world. The hunt for 1983 D copper pennies has become something of an obsession for many collectors, with people buying entire rolls and bags of 1983 D pennies from banks and coin dealers, then meticulously weighing each and every coin in hopes of finding that one magical specimen that weighs 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams. There are online forums dedicated entirely to the search, with treasure hunters sharing their strategies, posting photos of suspicious coins, and celebrating the thrill of the hunt, even when they come up empty-handed. Some have weighed thousands of 1983 D pennies without finding a single copper example, while others have gotten lucky within their first few rolls. It's the ultimate treasure hunt, right in your pocket change. Beyond the famous 1983 D copper error, there are other valuable varieties and errors to watch for among 1983 pennies. The 1983 double die reverse shows dramatic doubling on the Lincoln Memorial columns on the back of the coin, and high-grade examples can sell for $100 to $500 depending on the clarity of the doubling. There are also off-center strikes, broad strikes, and other minting errors that occurred during 1983 production, each adding value depending on the severity and eye appeal of the error. But make no mistake, the 1983 D-Copper penny is the king of 1983 errors, the one that every serious collector dreams about finding, and the one that could genuinely transform your financial situation overnight if you happen to discover an authentic specimen. Let me share some remarkable discovery stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. There was a teenager in Colorado who found a 1983 D penny in his school cafeteria change and, having watched YouTube videos about rare coins, decided to weigh it just for fun. When his digital scale showed 3.1 grams, he thought the scale was broken, so he tried several different scales at home, at school, and even at a local jewelry store. Every single scale confirmed the same weight. This was a copper penny. He submitted it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and it came back as a genuine 1983 D-Copper penny graded MS-63 red. At auction, that single penny sold for $126,000, which the young man used to pay for his entire college education with money left over for a car. Can you imagine finding a coin in your school cafeteria change that pays for 4 years of university? It sounds like a fairy tale, but it's absolutely true. Another incredible story comes from an elderly man in Michigan who had been saving pennies in large jars for decades, never spending them because his father had taught him to always save coins. When his grandson convinced him to check the pennies for valuable errors, they spent weeks going through jar after jar, weighing suspicious candidates. After checking nearly 20,000 pennies, they found two 1983 D-Copper pennies in the same jar. The odds of this are astronomically small, like getting struck by lightning twice in the same day. But it happened. Both coins were submitted for grading and sold for a combined total of $175,000, providing the man with financial security in his retirement years. These stories are not urban legends or exaggerated tales. They're documented cases with paper trails, grading certificates, and auction records, proving that finding valuable error coins is not only possible but happening regularly to everyday people who take the time to check their change. The 1983 D-Copper penny also raises fascinating questions about how many more might be out there, lost in circulation, sitting in change jars, tucked away in drawers, or even thrown away by people who had no idea what they possessed. Numismatic experts estimate that somewhere between 10 and 20 genuine 1983 D-Copper pennies were accidentally produced, though the exact number will never be known with certainty. To date, only about 5 to 7 have been authenticated and certified by professional grading services, which means there could be several more still undiscovered, waiting for someone to pull them out of a piggy bank or receive them in change at a gas station. The possibility that you could be the next person to discover one of these legendary coins is what makes this hobby so addictively exciting. Think about it. Every time you receive pennies in change, you're essentially getting free lottery tickets that could potentially be worth millions. All you need to do is check them, and checking them is incredibly easy with modern tools. You can buy a precise digital scale for under $20 that will accurately weigh your coins to 2 decimal places, allowing you to quickly identify any 1983 D pennies that weigh 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams. Once you've identified a potential copper penny, the next step is to have it authenticated by a professional grading service to confirm its genuineness and establish its grade, which will determine its market value. The investment of time and minimal money required for this treasure hunting is almost nothing compared to the potential payoff, making it one of the best risk-reward scenarios you'll ever encounter. The 1983 D-Copper penny phenomenon has also inspired countless people to learn more about numismatics, minting processes, and the history of American coinage. What starts as a simple treasure hunt often blossoms into a lifelong passion for collecting, studying, and appreciating coins as historical artifacts, works of art, and fascinating pieces of culture. The hobby of coin collecting has been described as the hobby of kings, but in truth, it's accessible to anyone regardless of age, background, or financial means because you can start simply by examining the coins you already handle every day. The thrill of discovery, the joy of learning, and the community of fellow enthusiasts make numismatics one of the most rewarding hobbies in existence. And the 1983 copper penny serves as a perfect gateway into this incredible world. Now, let's talk about the investment potential of error coins like the 1983 copper penny. The market for rare coins has proven to be remarkably resilient over time, with high-quality rarities consistently appreciating in value even during economic downturns. While stocks and real estate can be volatile, rare coins represent tangible assets with inherent historical and collectible value that tends to hold steady or increase over the long term. The 1983 copper penny, in particular, has shown spectacular appreciation, with values increasing by thousands of % over the past few decades. Early buyers who purchased examples for $50,000 have seen their investments quadruple or quintuple in value, and experts predict that as older collectors pass away and fewer specimens remain available on the market, prices will continue to climb. For those lucky enough to find one in circulation, the return on investment is essentially infinite since you acquired the coin at face value, 1 cent, and could potentially sell it for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Even if you don't find a 1983 copper penny, the practice of searching through your change and checking for errors can still yield significant profits because there are hundreds of different valuable error coins and varieties out there waiting to be discovered, from double dies to off-center strikes to wrong planchet errors across dozens of different years and denominations. The 1983 copper penny story also highlights the importance of patience and persistence in treasure hunting. The people who find these coins aren't necessarily lucky in the traditional sense. Rather, they're dedicated individuals who systematically check their coins, sometimes weighing thousands of specimens before hitting the jackpot. It's the numismatic equivalent of panning for gold. You have to sift through a lot of ordinary material to find that one precious nugget. But when you do, the reward is extraordinary. The beauty of this treasure hunt is that it costs you virtually nothing except time because you're checking coins that pass through your hands anyway, money that you would spend or deposit regardless. So why not take a few extra seconds to examine each penny before it leaves your possession? Those few seconds could change your life forever. Another fascinating aspect of the 1983 copper penny is how it demonstrates that even modern coins with advanced minting technology and quality control can still produce valuable errors. Many people assume that error coins are primarily a phenomenon of the distant past when minting processes were more primitive and mistakes more common. But the truth is that errors continue to occur even today, albeit less frequently, and when they do occur in the modern era, they're often more valuable because of their extreme rarity. The 1983 copper penny proves that treasure hunting isn't just about old coins from the 1800s or early 1900s. It's about being vigilant and knowledgeable about all the coins in circulation, including those from recent decades that most people would never think to examine closely. This realization has breathed new life into the hobby of error coin collecting, attracting younger enthusiasts who are excited by the possibility of finding valuable modern errors rather than feeling like all the good stuff is locked away in museums or wealthy collectors' vaults. The democratization of treasure hunting through accessible modern errors like the 1983 copper penny has been fantastic for the numismatic community, growing the hobby and ensuring its continued vitality for future generations. As we wrap up this incredible journey into the world of the 1983 Lincoln penny, I want to leave you with some final thoughts and action steps you can take right now to start your own treasure hunt. First, gather all the pennies you have in your house. Check coat pockets, car cup holders, drawers, piggy banks, coin jars, and anywhere else loose change accumulates. Second, separate out all the 1983 D pennies you find. These are the ones marked with 1983 and a small D mint mark below the date. Third, weigh each 1983 D penny using a digital scale. Any that weigh 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams are potential copper errors and should be set aside immediately for further authentication. Fourth, even if you don't find any 1983 D copper pennies, don't throw away the other pennies. Check them for double dies, off-center strikes, and other visible errors that could also be valuable. Fifth, expand your search to other years and denominations because valuable errors exist throughout American coinage, not just on 1983 D pennies. Sixth, educate yourself by joining online communities, watching educational videos, reading books and articles about error coins, and connecting with experienced collectors who can mentor you and help you identify valuable finds. Seventh, be patient and persistent because finding truly rare errors is challenging. But the more coins you check and the more knowledge you acquire, the better your chances become of making a life-changing discovery. The 1983 D copper penny represents everything magical about numismatics. It's proof that treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting for observant, educated, and persistent individuals to discover them. It's a reminder that the ordinary can become extraordinary through the accidents of history and manufacturing, and that anyone, regardless of their background or resources, can participate in the thrill of treasure hunting simply by paying attention to the money that passes through their hands every single day. So I challenge you right now to commit to checking your coins from this day forward. Make it a habit, make it fun, make it a family activity where everyone gets involved in the search for valuable errors. Teach your children about coins, history, and the excitement of discovery. You'll be giving them an education that extends far beyond the monetary value of any coins you might find. The 1983 D Lincoln penny worth $2 million is out there somewhere, perhaps multiple examples still undiscovered, and there is absolutely no reason why one of them couldn't end up in your hands. Every penny you receive is an opportunity, every transaction a chance to strike numismatic gold, and every coin you check brings you one step closer to potentially finding that once-in-a-lifetime treasure that transforms your financial reality. So don't let this video be just entertainment. Let it be the beginning of your own treasure hunting adventure, your gateway into the fascinating world of error coins, and perhaps, just perhaps, the first step on a journey that leads you to discover your own $2 million penny. Remember, fortune favors the observant, success comes to the persistent, and life-changing discoveries await those who have the courage to look closer at the world around them, starting with something as simple and humble as the pennies in their pocket.